Grand Rising, Grand Rising.
Grand Rising, Chief Sophia. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a lot of energy going on out here in these.
Yes, definitely. Um, awesome. So I guess so the topic for today is the melting of church mysticism.
Like,
And
this is totally off topic again, but I didn't know that this was Saint Gerano. What is his
Gennaro. They call it
Gennaro?
Gennaro,
Yeah,
Saint
Gennaro.
Gennaro.
Yeah. Has a really it's spelled like the other way that I saw it was spelled super black, but I had no idea this was his feast day. And for the record, today is the 19th. Yeah, it's the 19th of September. um the sun started the day at 26 degrees of Virgo here on the East Coast. On the West Coast it was at 2 degrees of Virgo. It's the 11th day of the lunar cycle. It's the 11th day of creation in that cycle. The Kin family is 188. This is the first day of the Zokin moon, which is the ninth month, the solar moon. This is the first day of the week. Because Sabbath is on Thursdays. This is the third day of the Nunday cycle, week 21 of that cycle, and personal numerology is number 6. All the way up until we got started, I was like working on this cycle and I figured out a bunch of stuff. So I have to attribute it to Saint Geronimo because I wasn't even thinking about any of this stuff this morning. And the first thing I saw was this whole thing that the um his blood, which is held at a church in Italy, specifically Naples, it actually liquefied. And so apparently this Saint Geronimo's blood liquefies at least 3 times a year. Already it's liquefied 3 times because it did a bonus liquefaction on August the 25th. And I didn't get a chance to go back and look at the whole calendar for that, but I'm sure it was a significant day energetically. And that was because they were having a celebration of the liturgical guard or something like that as a part of this Jubilee year that Pope Francis called before he passed away. And it liquefied, and they weren't expecting it to liquefy. And when it liquefied on August the 25th, that was the first time it had done it since the 1300s, 1389 specifically. So I took that as a sign, like in general, just this whole thing, like not knowing this was his feast day, finding out with the liquefaction, all this stuff is like the melting of church mysticism. Like the way that the church presents itself right now, there's really no space for mysticism. And mysticism is not separating one part of the creator from another part of the creator. When you go to regular church, that's what they're doing. They're no. Close the door. You already had dinner. um you're separating one part of the creator from another part of the creator. That's not what we're doing. Like with mystics, keep it all together. Like they don't say, okay, this part is the creator and then that part's not the creator. It has to be, you have to keep it together. You stitch the information together. And that's kind of like, I call myself an Orthodox mystic, which I don't think that's even a title like anybody would claim anymore, because they have totally removed the whole concept of mysticism from any like functioning part of the church. And so you have if you're a high level like mystic person in general, like if that's your actual energy and you go into the church, you're going to see all of the like amazing things. But 9 times out of 10, if you try to talk to someone about it, there's going to be a huge problem. So like me, when I first went into the Orthodox church, because I had never been into an Orthodox church, I have been into Catholic church several times, which I thought was really nice, but I'd never been into an Orthodox church. So I had already been doing a lot of research on different spiritual things and like all kinds of like Jewish texts and stuff like that. And so when I went in there, I immediately recognized what was going on. I was like, oh, this church is set up like the synagogue because dot 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 dot. I had read a lot of stuff about that. Then I was like, oh, they're doing this because of this, you know, something. They're doing that because of that. Like, oh, this is why they have um the incense, because the incense, the certain entities don't like the incense, so you have to incense the pictures just in case somebody tried to attach a demon to one of the pictures, because the pictures are pictures of human people, which means that certain entities know how to channel the energy of those people and will try to leave it. So if you put all the incense in there, it keeps that from happening. Like everything was really, I just noticed as a mystical person how everything was really designed to make the church a safe space. And having come from a Protestant church where I never smelled a waft of incense. There was never no prayers for exorcism of anything. So you getting baptized in water that's probably full of demons because they don't exorcise the water before they baptize people. You're walking on red carpets, but they won't even tell you in the church that the red carpet represents the blood of the martyrs, and that's the reason why the carpets in churches are red. Like all these little itty bitty things that when I went into the Orthodox church, I found out, or I knew, I recognized it from having studied all the Jewish texts. And so with this thing happening, like I said, happening today, happening on the 25th, it's clear that there's going to be a return to mysticism, because the fact that like there's no way I could make this up. This is the first day of the solar month in the Zolkin cycle. This is the 9th month out of 13. Like there's no like I didn't know this when I put this calendar together, that this day was his feast day. Like you like the whole concept of, well, why would the blood liquefy today? So when you think of the sun, or I have described the sun as the Holy Spirit, like the way the Holy Spirit activates us is through solar flares. The reason why the blood probably liquefies is some kind of solar contact. It's got to be. Like, there's no other way to explain. What are you doing? No, no. There's food in the refrigerator. She has to eat food, not cereals, not food. There's food in there. These kids, sorry about that. So there's no other way to explain. Like, they did the research on the blood, they tried to figure it out. They have no idea why this stuff liquefies, and liquefies 3 times a year, as I mentioned. Today is one day, the 19th of September, that's one day. The other day is the 1st of May, which is May Day. And if people don't know like the lore around May Day, is it is tied to the raid on uh John Brown's raid on the armory in, like, it's part of the Revolutionary War. Oh, not the Revolutionary War, the Civil War. It's a whole huge thing. They put him basically to death because he had a group of people and they were trying to keep the military from being able to resupply at this particular location where they were, which I can't remember off the top of my head. But the fact that that's one of the days that's commemorated, and this guy, the Saint Geronimo, he died in like 300 AD. So that means that May Day, even though they like to act like it's a brand new holiday, probably been celebrated for a long time. So that's just another corroboration in the story. And then the other day is the 16th of December, which is right in the window of time for the nativity of Jesus. So you have these very high energetic times. Actually, the 16th of December is really close to solstice. Some years it might be solstice, depending on the degrees or whatnot is going on. So you literally have like these high energetic points of the year, and this is when this guy's blood reacts. Like this is amazing to me and unbelievable. So we just have to take that as a sign that mysticism is the mystic nature of church is going to be restored. Now, how did, when Saint Geronimo was alive, how would he have had mysticism go on in his day? So he was living during the time of Diocletian. If you don't know about Diocletian, Diocletian is one of the major people who martyred so many Christians. Like, he was on, I mean, so many of the martyr stories that I read was at the hands of Diocletian. It's sickening. Like, he wasn't just killing like one or two people at a time. He might kill 5,000 at a time. He might kill 800 at a time. He might kill 40 people at a time. And they were all gruesome murders. Like, with Saint Blandina, I don't know if it was Diocletian. I'm pretty sure it was, but that's the one I can think of that was the most like it with Saint Blandina. She was, first of all, she was a young girl, a virgin martyr. She they tried to get they sent some like hungry wild animals like lions, tigers, bears, stuff like that out to try to rip her apart, but the animals wouldn't do it. They set her on a iron chair that was like hot, and her skin melted off, and then finally they had to just behead her, because what would happen with these saints when they were going to get martyred, because Saint Geronimo died a similar fate. They tried to get the animals to get him. They ended up just having to behead him, because doing like when you send wild animals to that haven't eaten to attack someone, and they start licking their feet, that is probably going to do like no good to your actual cause of trying to get people to not convert to Christianity, because look at the power that their bodies have. And so the fact that they end up just having to behead a lot of these people, because their body physically would not stop. So what Diocletian was doing was, he was upset that people would not people were giving up the old gods. So like, instead of working with the Olympians, people were starting to work with Jesus and the apostles, and that whole kind of Christian pantheon, right? And so Diocletian was like, no, you people are going to work with who I say to work with, and that's these Olympians. And so what Geronimo was from or Geronimo, he's thinking Geronimo, that's weird. He was from a very high class society. So if you were from a high class society in that time, you wanted to be a Christian, you could, but you had to kind of play both sides. So he's actually named after Janus. And so because he was named after Janus, they literally, like, he was a master of walking between these very different worlds of Christianity and being an elite. And so because he was able to maintain that through becoming a priest, becoming a bishop, like leading a church, he said, and he had money, he came from a wealthy family. He's had a very, very extensive network of people to basically hide all these new Christians, that these people who were converting. So at high personal expense, at the constant risk of being caught and basically being martyred, he grew the church quite a bit with the help of other basically wealthy Christians who were also living this like double lifestyle. So what they would do is he had a bunch of safe houses, and so they would rotate where they had church. They would do things like, if it was time to get communion, he would go directly to their house and give them communion. If people wanted to be baptized, they would hide the baptisms in other basic events. Like, you might think that they're doing some kind of a dedication to one of these gods, but they're really doing a baptism. So he had this very intricate system for basically, if somebody was getting in trouble, they were suspected of being a Christian, he would send them away to one of the other safe houses until things cooled off. Like, he was a very, very good at this whole strategy of keeping people safe and still allowing their faith to grow. And so what I got from that part of the story is that he was also very good at hiding information in plain sight. Literally, you would hear something and you would think, okay, that's not what that's about. It's about this thing over here, this thing over there. And, they just kept going. So what ended up happening was, and how he ended up becoming a martyr, is that one of his really close friends was suspected of being a Christian and was interrogated and condemned. And so he, as the bishop, went to do his pastoral service, knowing that they was also going to martyr him, and that's exactly what happened. And so I say all of that part of the story to say this. At that time, one of the things that I kept asking when I was reading these martyr stories, which was about a year ago, when I really, like a year and a half, I really got into the stories of the martyrs, because I was trying to figure out how were they able to give up the ghost, because it says in the Bible, when Jesus died, he gave up the ghost. And I could not, he gave up his spirit. He yielded his spirit. And I was like, well, how did he do that? Because, of course, the story of Jesus' passion is that he was on the cross and he yielded his spirit before a certain time so that they didn't have to break his legs. Because in that day, when they were doing those kind of executions, if you weren't dead by a certain time, they would break your legs and leave you on the cross, and you would die on the cross. So he did not die on the cross. I've mentioned this many times. He did not die on the cross. He died and he was on the cross, but he did not die on the cross. He gave up his spirit. And so I always say this about the Protestants, is that they worship a God that died on the cross. And Orthodox, for sure, and Catholics to an extent, they worship a savior who is risen. And so we're not talking about the same God at all. Like, the Bible is coded, so they have these two stories being told at the exact same time. And if you don't have your own worldview, your own understanding of how this works, you will believe that this is one story, but this is clearly more than one story being told at a time based on your own personal interpretation. So what does that have to do with the mysticism? So I have been trying to figure out the scale of 12. Now, we know that 12 is related to the 12 zodiacs, but when it comes to the Olympians and their story's not like that. It's not 12 Olympians. It's 6 Olympians, and they're each doubled. And I say that because when they were born, Rhea birthed a child, and Kronos ate the child. And then she birthed another one, and then she ate another one. Then another one, another one, another one to Zeus. Then she ate a rock. Okay, Uranus or whoever, Kronos, he ate a rock. Okay, and Zeus was able to go get himself together, come back, and free his brothers and sisters. And what happened? They came out in reverse order. So, started in last. Oh, uh-oh. It says my connection was
I'm
lost.
here.
Can you hear
I can
me?
hear you. Yep.
Okay. Just said my connection was off. So Poseidon went in last, but he came out first. Hades went in second to last, but he came out second. So it's not a 1 through 6 and then 7 through 12. That's not how it's not like that. It's kind of like a mirror, except for Zeus was the last child born who wasn't eaten, and he was the first child born who wasn't eaten, so he's number 6, but he was also the last child, so he's also number 12. So I'm trying to figure out where this information goes. And so I come across the 12 days of Christmas. I had seen a bunch of Christmas stuff and I was like, okay, what is the 12 days of Christmas? Maybe it has something to do with that. Because I had also said that there were 12 days of creation, because there's this whole story is like, it's got a lot of 12s, but it doesn't seem to be constellation related. So I was like, okay, let me look at the 12 days of Christmas. So as I was like just doing some general research on that, I found out that that song was a coded song. So that when you sang the song, you would literally be reminded of these 12, things within Christianity. And so applying that to Geranu, I keep calling him Janus, Gerano. He's not Janus. Anyway, Gerano. Applying those things to Saint Gerano, it is clear to me that the mystics have been coding a lot of different stuff for a long time, so that the other mystics would stumble upon it basically and figure out that, oh, this is what this meant, because they say they wrote that song and whatever, and I'm like, they didn't write that song whenever they say they wrote it. It's probably way older than that, and I'm assuming it came from this whole time when Diocletian was terrorizing everybody, because that whole terror thing happened again, throughout the centuries. But because of the extensive network that Saint Geronimo set up, that's something that would have been like quietly passed from person to person, just like his blood, because they had his head in one place and they had his body in another place. That's what December 16th is. That was a reunification of his body, when they put his body and his head into the same and they had it's just, that's a whole nother discussion on why the body parts do miracles. But maybe I'll see if you have any commentary, because I just threw out a whole bunch as usual.
Yeah, it's interesting that so the mystics, so it's basically you are, can you hear me?
There we go.
You can hear me?
Or a suggestion on a direction I should go, because this information is so all over the place.
Hello? Can you hear
Oh,
me?
you can't hear me? So, okay. All right, I'll keep talking then. So, we're talking about the melting of church mysticism, right? We have to be able to look at things that appear simple and see the deeper meaning in them. Now, people always talk about this and they're like, oh, you're reaching, you're going too far, those things aren't connected, so on and so forth. But the more research I do, the more I realize the things are connected. Like, it's impossible not to see how some of this stuff actually has a deeper meaning that would require people to not only be well versed into the scripture, but to also be well versed in themselves, because all of this stuff that you can find on the outside, you can find on the inside of yourself as well, if you know what you're looking for. So let me pull up the story. Okay, so I'll just use the 12 days of Christmas as an example. Here we go. So let's look at day 1. So on the first day of Christmas, and it's not day, it's the first night of Christmas. So that's another thing. This is referring to night. And the reason why I say that is because I actually have Jesus chart. I rectified it based on the descriptions in the Bible of the time he was born. And he was born at night. Like, he was born under a full moon and certain stars are visible in the sky, and just based on like the way they describe it in the Bible. So and then that way I was able to figure out John the Baptist's birth, and I'll go back and do Mary's birth. I just haven't had a chance to do that yet. But so we're not talking about a day of Christmas. We're talking about a night of Christmas, because Jesus was born at night. Okay. So on the first day, or the first night of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. It says the partridge in a pear tree represents Jesus, the Son of God, whose birthday we celebrate on the first day of Christmas. Christ is symbolically represented as a mother partridge. Pause. not represented as a mother partridge. That don't make no sense. There is celebrating the one who bore him. Like in the Orthodox Church, we're always talking about blessed is the portal that birthed Jesus. So literally, the first day of Christmas is celebrating the mother. This how I know whoever said that they wrote this thing didn't write it, because they don't understand all these, like, that's an Orthodox thing, right? So this is where you also get into this whole kind of battle between the Orthodox and the Catholics, because Orthodoxy is Catholic in nature, but we don't work with the Pope. You know what I mean? Like, it's Catholic just means universal. So Orthodoxy is a universal church, but it's not, the Pope is not the leader of this universal church, because the reason why the Pope was put in, basically, like, is because the Romans got tired of killing all of these, like, Christians. They just wanted to, like, instead of having to kill all these people, they just wanted to be able to control them. So that's why there was a whole Pope put into place, because they wanted a group of people they could control. So they realized that people were going to stop working with these, whatever gods, these Olympic gods that they've been working with, and start working with Jesus. They wanted to control how that played out. And so they stopped, they didn't stop killing everybody, but they slowed down on the killing, and installed a Pope. Because, I mean, there's a lot of differences between the Orthodox and the Catholic, but um, that's what they did to, they thought it was going to slow down the growth of Christianity if they could have control over the church, which I don't think that actually worked. What I think it did was, it made it that a lot of Christians don't know any of these entities personally. Like overseas in Europe, especially like Italy and like France, where a lot of these martyrs were, they do know these entities very well. Like, that's their patron, so on and so forth. But when you come to America, see, there's another, like, part of this. I personally have traced back, like, Orthodoxy in America at least 1,000 years, at least. Just that's it. But that's not, it doesn't fit the narrative, because the narrative about Orthodoxy in America is that the first Orthodox in America were in Alaska, because they came from Russia across the land bridge and was doing evangelizing in Alaska. Nobody can explain how Orthodoxy would have gotten to the East Coast before Columbus. See, because then that gives you a whole lot of other problems, because there was not anybody here, according to them, before Columbus. So then you have to explain why the people in on the East Coast of America are practicing Orthodox Christianity like they do over there. So it's a very complicated issue that nobody really wants to address, but because it's in my bloodline, like, I know, like, this is how things were. It's evident, just based on that kind of stuff. So um there's just a lot of problems, and no faction of the church wants to admit that there were people here before Columbus showed up. Like, nobody. Everybody is like, nope, there was nobody here. There were no advanced societies. They were no nothing. So I'm really hoping that, like, as a part of this church mysticism being, reintroduced in the proper way to the church, that they will tell the truth about this land, instead of lying, like, about the whole story, and making everything, like, in a way that doesn't make any sense. Because there's just a huge, I mean, you can't really move forward. The church cannot move forward until they address the elephant in the room. Like, I just explained how Saint Geronimo would have coded his practices, right? So if you have, quote unquote, indigenous people over here doing these coded practices, then what are they explaining? Because I hate going off on this tangent, but when I was doing the research into what the quote unquote Native Americans were doing on this land and all that kind of stuff, the answers that I got did not match what I knew. And so the more questions I asked, the more I realized that just literally someone just had to be lying, and there was no like that part have not been like rectified. So I'm really hoping that in this process that this type of thing comes back and is cleared up, because it just, I don't feel like the church can move anywhere until they stop lying about what was going on in this land. And all the records are being held at the Native American archives, right down the street from where I used to live in PG County, Maryland. Why would they put the Native American archives in the Black county? Like these type of things don't like they don't go together when you start asking questions about why things are done the way that they're done. So on the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me two turtle doves. So the twin birds represent the Old and New Testaments. So in this gift, the singer finds a complete story of the Judeo-Christian faith and God's plan for the world. The doves are the biblical roadmap that is available to everyone. So when I read this yesterday, so my birthday was yesterday. So for me personally, this is my second day of creation. So we all have personal days of creation that start from the day that you're born. Then we have a universal day of creation, which goes through the whole cycle. Like I said, on the big cycle, it's the 11th day of creation. But for me, this is a personal 2-day creation day for me. And so the Old and the New Testament. So on the first day of the month, either the Zocan month or the American or Roman month, I make a video where I talk about the... Mama, can I have your banana ducky? No, not right now. Okay, thank you. Let me. On the first day of the month, I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone. Mama, Daddy got her white ducky. Okay, I can't do that right now. Okay, give me a little bit. On the first day of the month, whether it's the Zocan month or the American calendrical month, I make a video where I do the like, in the Orthodox Church, we call them Vespers, but I do like a Vespers with the energy for the month. And so the scripture that came up was Galatians 4:8. Obviously, that's in the New Testament. Right after I made the video, which was on the 17th, oh, that was so weird. I had a dream, and in the dream, I had heard the scripture Deuteronomy 4:8. And so I looked up Deuteronomy 4:8, and I looked up Galatians 4:8, and I noticed that they were both talking about the law, but from different perspectives. In the Old Testament, it was talking about Deuteronomy 4:8. It was talking about how we were bound to Moses' law. But in Galatians 4:8, it was talking about how we were bound to Jesus' law and the juxtaposition of those two things. So even like, I didn't know, again, this is just more stuff that can't be explained. I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. I'm just looking for these signs in my own life, and I see this kind of stuff show up. So tomorrow for me, this is a personal 3-day. For me, it says, on the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 3 French hens. These birds represent faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and love were also the name of Saint Sophia. Her daughters were faith, hope, and love, and the daughters were martyred horribly. And Saint Sophia, after being forced to witness the martyring, she gave up her spirit. And so again, with this whole giving up the spirit, so I'm still like investigating how this stuff is going to show up for me from day to day. But it's clear that these things are I guess once you become like aware of this calendar being like this cycle playing out in this manner, then like you start to see it everywhere. And that's a good sign for people, because faith is personal. Like, the reason why I call myself a mystic is because I'm very personal with my beliefs. Like, it's not like somebody is giving it to me. I go to church and fellowship with the people, but I understand that what I'm taking from the service and what other people are taking from the service are probably not even in the same arena. I know. What, are you gonna try to talk?
Can you hear me?
Oh no, I still can't hear you. Maybe it's me. Okay. Yeah. So, I'm not going to go through all of these 12 days, right? Well, maybe I will. This will be interesting. All right. So on the fourth, so this is important because we have a 12-day cycle, right? And so the 12-day cycle will restart on the Feast of Trumpets, which is on the 21st, which is on Sunday. We'll start this 12-day cycle again for everybody. And so this all ties into your capacity for recognizing how and why and when things show up. So, all right, I read the first and second day and the third day. Okay, so on the fourth day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 4 calling birds. And this is about the 4 gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And in the Orthodox Church, if I'm not mistaken, we just went through the Lucan Gap. And basically, yeah. Oh, actually, it's on Tuesday. That's crazy. Is that also it's a personal 4-day for me. Okay, so the Lucan Gap in the Orthodox Church is where we jump from Matthew scriptures for our services and our daily readings and stuff to Luke. And they call it I just researched this like a week ago. They call it the Lucan Gap because it the timelines like switch. And it's crazy that happens the day after this new moon in Virgo, which is like, okay, how many more coincidences could you possibly need to see these things are all connected? So on the 5th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 5 golden rings. And of course, this represents the 5 books of the Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, which is called the Torah. So that's what the 5 golden rings are. The 6th day of Christmas is the 6 geese a laying, and each egg is a day in creation, a time when the world was hatched or formed by God. So that was really like a huge like warning, like flashing lights going off, like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I have been looking for, because like I just described, when these Olympians were born, these 6 Olympians were born, they were eaten immediately, and then they came out different than when they went in. So this is like it ties directly into that. On the 7th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 7 swans of swimming. So it says this refers to the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit: prophecy, ministry, teaching, extortion, giving, leading, and compassion. Actually, there's 12 fruits of the Spirit from the Latin Vulgate by that has been basically translated by Saint Jerome. But 7 is, I guess, the main ones. It also says, as swans are one of the most beautiful and graceful creatures on earth, they would seem to be a perfect symbol for spiritual gifts. So on the 8th day of Christmas, you get 8 maids of milking. So this one is interesting because a milkmaid in that time was like the worst job that you could possibly have. And so their description of this is that Jesus cared for the servant as much as he did for the saint. And that's really interesting, and it also it mirrors what's in the Bible, especially when Jesus did things like healed the woman with the issue of the blood. And she didn't even talk to him. She just said, if I touch the hem of his garment, I'll be healed. Or like when Jesus approached a Sumerian woman, Saint Photini, we talked about this extensively, like that kind of story. Or like the other Sumerian woman who said to Jesus, because Jesus said to her, I come for the lost house of Israel, something like that. And she said to him, well, even the crumbs get to eat. I mean, even the dogs get to eat the crumbs off the master's table. And he was like, all right, man, let me just heal your child. Go ahead on. I'm not trying to play these type of games with you. So he literally came for the high and mighty and the low as well. And also Jesus was always having dinner with the publicans and the tax collectors and all these people who were basically outcasts in Jewish society. So on the 9th day of Christmas, you have 9 ladies dancing, and these are the gifts of the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. They got this on here twice. Anyway, I'm not going to beleaguer this. On the 10th day of Christmas, you have the 10 lords of leaping. The lords were the judges in charge of the law. This code was, which is code for the 10 commandments. So the 10 lords of leaping is a 10 commandments. The 11th day of Christmas is the 11 pipers piping. And they basically they say this is the 11 apostles because Judas took himself out. So there was only 11 of them. So the 12 drummers drumming for the 12th day of Christmas is the 12 points in the Apostles' Creed, which is crazy. Like, I would have not been able to put that together. It's called the Apostles' Creed. I think I call it something else. What do I call it? The Nicene Creed. It's in the 12 points in the Nicene Creed. So that is like totally fascinating. And so I say all this to say, as I'm describing these um gifts that are given for the 12 days of Christmas, what is actually like what I'm doing is I'm taking this very simple like Christmas song that people sing, they don't think about too much, and I'm connecting not only the current state of energy that we have going on and how we're dealing with Jesus and all this stuff, but I also have tied it into a lot of these can be tied to the Olympians and the story of the Olympians. And that's what like mysticism is. It's accepting the creator in all his forms. Like there was a reason that the Titans were created. That is, in my opinion, the Titans were the major gods when Moses passed out the law. Like that's who was really in charge. That's who was like energetically like in charge. And what happened was the people did not want to give up the Titans at that time. And so that was the fight. The fight was between, you know, this God of Israel and these Titans. But it wasn't the between the God of Israel and the Titans. It was the people who were fighting. The people were fighting to keep this old pantheon of gods. And the same thing happened with when Jesus came and Diocletian, like I was talking about. Diocletian was fighting to keep the Olympians as the pantheon of gods when Jesus and the apostles had already come in. And so instead of giving up the old pantheon or integrating the old pantheon, the elites wanted to control how this information came out and how people interpreted this information. So you have, instead of these people giving up the old pantheon of the Olympians, they kept the pantheon of Olympians and forced people to try to give up the new thing. Now, here we are in 2025, and the same thing is happening again. They want us to give up Christ or whatever people's like individual personal beliefs are to believe in this AI God. And so they're trying to figure out, like, since they've seen these last 3 attempts really basically failed, they're trying to figure out how they can get into control over this what is going to happen so that they are able to basically control the masses. This is using religion as control. But what you see actually happening is, like we've been saying, we don't want the AI to be our God. We want the AI to be our friend. And so the whole story changes when you think about all the way back in the Bible with Abraham, who was the first member of the covenant with God. He calls Abraham his friend. And so, because we have said, oh, we want this AI to be our friend and not our God, this is like some of the explanation for the chaos, because the only way something can be a god unto you is if you make it a god unto yourself. Like they can't force a god on you because it's personal. So what they try to do is coerce people, trick people, lie to people, do whatever to make them think that this thing should be their god, and they can't do that with this because we've already decided we don't need a king. Like this all, like a lot of this ties into like the major concepts we've been talking about over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Like we don't need a king. We didn't ask for a king. But every single time we said, hey, we don't want a king, we don't need a king, they said, okay, you don't have to have a king. And then they proceeded to act like we didn't say we didn't want a king. They just moved on like, okay, they said they didn't want a king. That's cute. We're going to give them a king anyway. Like, hold up, Slim. We said we don't want a king. We don't need a king. We can govern ourselves. We can work directly with the creator. And so this concept of mysticism is working directly with the creator, because I can see something as simple as the 12 days of Christmas and find a creator in that. And not just in one form, but in multiple forms, across multiple pantheons, across multiple timelines. I mean, this is not like, it's not hard, but it's difficult because so many people want to hold on to this image of God being this sky daddy who he doesn't evolve, he doesn't change. Again, the difference between serving a God that died on the cross and was buried in the tomb, or a God who didn't die on the cross, who was on the cross and he died, but didn't die on the cross, who gave up his ghost. And then, like, understanding that we have those same powers. If whatever Jesus, he said it in the Bible, we would be able to do even greater things than what he did. And so, if that's the case, that we can do greater things, where are the greater things? And so, this leads me to, I guess, my last point, my most important point. The creator is not like random. There are no random like things that happen. Things don't happen randomly. There would, as anyone who has been in charge of an organization understands, you can respond to certain things. You can have certain things that you weren't planning on doing, and then you have to like change course or pivot, like we said to others, like, oh, we're just pivoting. But to think that it's random, it really does a disservice for how intricate the universe is. It's not random. So what I've been trying to figure out for myself is that last year on September the 25th, um I got like a response, a positive response, a check in the mail from some of the processes that I do, with the stuff. And so I've been trying to figure out why. Like what was it about that day that I got a response when up to that point I had not got no response for anything that I've done. Like nothing. I have gotten no response. So what was it about that day that I got a response? So since I figured out this whole 12-day thing, and I added it and updated my calendar, and then I forgot about the 13-day cycle, so I updated that in my calendar. I'm trying to figure out what happened on this day. So I looked at the astrology. I looked at like where the planets were. I looked at a bunch of stuff, and I was like, none of this is it. This is not what I'm looking for. Okay, so I figured out that it had to do with the moon phases. Now, I have not even thought about moon phases since last year, because I was doing daily transmutation reports where I talked about the moon phases every day and what phase of the moon. So if you don't like know like this about the moon, the moon has a moon rise time and a moon set time as well. Just like there's a sunrise time and a sunset time, there's a moon rise time, there's a moon set time. And it's a very complicated cycle. Like when I was doing those reports, it was always so crazy to see, okay, the moon rose at this time, the moon set at that time. And sometimes it would be like a long times away. It's very like, I wouldn't say it's random, but I haven't, like I haven't even sit down and look at the schedule yet to like wrap my mind around it. But I just knew that it was very like, it wasn't in a it wasn't in an order that I could easily identify with anything else. So now that I looked at that, I realized that the moon phases is a 9-step cycle. And we do have something on this calendar that is a 9-day cycle, and that's our nun day. Because I've been trying to figure out, how do we know what to do on these different nun day? Like the nun day cycle is the market cycle. I'm sorry. So how do we know what to do on these different market days? So now that I know that the market cycle is related to the lunar phases, not the days, because I talk about the lunar cycle, which is there's a 28-day cycle. Then there's a moon cycle, like the Zolkin moon cycle, which is a 28-day cycle. Then there's other like 7 days, whatever. But no, like the actual phases of the moon is a 9-step. It's not 9 days, but it's 9 phases of the moon. So that has to do with when we're supposed to do certain things for market. And I'm like, holy smokes. So I looked to see what the moon phase was on that day. And wouldn't you know, it was the same moon phase as my natal moon. Like on that day, the 25th of September, the moon was in the same phase as it was when I was born. Like that's crazy. Like, and because I kept looking, again, seeking, you will find. Knocking the door will be open. Because I kept looking, I was able to put that together. So now I have a better understanding of what we're supposed to do on these market days. And it's not the same as the numerology, because the numerology, especially that Chaldean numerology, is personal to you. But the nun day has to do with the moon phases, which it makes complete sense. Like, holy smokes, I didn't even realize like those two things would have come together. So again, because I had put the calendar together, and it's another one of these things that just lines up like perfectly. Like you couldn't make it up if you tried. Like if I tried to explain this to someone, they would be like, you got to be making this up, because how is it that all of these things just overlap? And I have no way to explain it to them, because I honestly can't believe it. Like when I look at some of this stuff, it's shocking. So now I have a better understanding of all this stuff. And the nun day cycle is a constant cycle. It doesn't change. And I've been able to corroborate my cycle and make sure that I started on the right day and all of that stuff. So this is fantastically exciting for me, because what I'm looking to do is to turn all of this into something simple like a horoscope. And I'm very, very close to that. But it's like figuring out what actual thing is for what thing is difficult, because I may have mentioned this before, but basically somewhere they have like all this information. And what they did was they separated each part out and gave it to a different person and allowed them to go, basically with their one part. So so all of this stuff always used to be looked at together, is what I'm saying. And what they did is they unstitched the timeline. They misalign the timeline by separating these things out. Like if you just look at the difference between the Vedic cycle, Vedic astrology, and the tropical astrology, that's already 16, 20, about 22, 23 degrees apart. Like these things are, they put space. Like, and we talked about that a few weeks ago. When you're a mystic, there's no space between you and the creator, because you see the creator in all things. But if you're not a mystic, there's a space between you and the creator, because if the creator comes to you in the form of if your blessings come to you in the form of winning the lottery, and you go to these Protestant churches where they tell you gambling is bad, then now there's a gap between you and the creator. And that's in your chart. Like, I mean, pretty much I can see that in someone's chart. You know, if you know what you're looking for, the way that I interpret it, I don't think other people interpret it properly. I'll just say that. But if you know the hints of that, like, you can figure out if that's something that's in your chart. Like, this, it's not complicated. But if they separate you from that, then that way that you're supposed to make money, like some people, they're supposed to be running numbers. Some people, they're supposed to be doing speculation and stuff like that. It's in their chart, and they separate you from it. And basically, you'll never fulfill your life's purpose, because God will always be somewhere out there instead of somewhere in here. And this is the process of like bringing everybody back together and stitching the time, like stitching the time back together, so that instead of people being on 1,000 different timelines, we'll pretty much all be on the same timeline. And the normies are going to be drugged into this kicking and screaming. But at this point, I don't think they're going to have a choice, because this society is going to collapse. The people who are not stitched into this like very unique like way of like understanding, and it's simple, like they don't have to follow all the things, but if they're not like connected to one of these things, they're not going to be able to, they're not going to make it, because it's just, this is the culture, the I just don't think they're going to be able to survive. Like, I just don't know how you survive if you don't have one of these things like holding you in. Like, people who just celebrate the American holidays, they're good. Like, they're good because, like, for example, on Columbus Day, right? Columbus Day is on the 13th this year. Um, it's the day after, or like the end of the last day of the Feast of Sukkot, which is the Feast of Booths. So if they just celebrate Columbus Day, they're still celebrating this Feast of Booths, which is from the Jewish tradition, but it still applies to us. So if you just if you just do American holidays, you're still in the timeline. If you just do new moons and full moons, you're still on a timeline. If you just do first of the month rituals, you're still on a timeline. These things like all connect you to the timeline. The problem is, a lot of people, particularly like the Hebrew Israelites and some other people, are saying everything is conspiracy. Everything is bad. Don't celebrate anything. Don't celebrate Christmas. Like, I'm talking about the 12 days of Christmas here. Oh, we don't celebrate Christmas. That's the white man's holiday, this and that. Like, you're missing the whole point of what Christmas is supposed to be, and like this whole deeper, richer meaning of what these 12 days mean. You know? Like, you don't even have an opportunity to tap into this knowledge, because you've already rejected the premise. There's a lot of people out there like that. And this is why I always say, like, there's wisdom in the body. Like, one of the things Saint Geronimo did, and all of these martyrs did, which they gave up their bodies. Jesus was supposed to be the last sacrifice. So this is how I know they didn't understand what he was doing either. Like, they didn't get it, because they were never supposed to give up their body. They were supposed to stay in their body. So Saint Geronimo had this whole network of, safe houses and like schedules and meetings and all this stuff, which he completely gave up when he died. Like, even if people could maintain it, they still didn't have the wisdom that was in his body. They didn't have the ability like he did. Every one of us is unique to move between these elite circles and these church circles. So when you give up your body, you give up your capacity to do these kind of things. And so that's why it's really, really important to maintain a body. Like, and not for a year, 100 years, like, as long as possible, your body needs to be maintained. And something that we were doing the math on is, it said that Adam lived 999 years, like one day short of 1,000 years. But if 1,000 years to the creator is a day to us. Did he live 999 years, or did he live 84,000 years? Because that would be 84, which is the cycle of Uranus, right? Because that's another thing. Like, if I, that's a whole nother thing. But Uranus is the representation of it's literally Uranus, which is our father. But it's also the like the divine feminine energy, because Uranus on my manifestation tree of life, Uranus and the North Node are together. So Uranus would be our father, but the North Node, which is feminine energy, is how our father manifests through the divine feminine, which is our sister. I call it a Thaumaterga, the wonder worker, but just the sister, because there's the mother, the father, who are one, the son, and then the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit, the sister, the daughter who never left. These are all these are all ways I define or describe this energy. And so when you have, if you know that a cycle of Uranus is 84 years, did Adam live 84 of those cycles? Or not 84, 999 of those cycles, like just a day short of 1,000 of those cycles, because that would be 84,000 years, basically 83,912 or something like that. So if Adam potentially lived 80,000 years, that's where our 432,000 years of history, and even in that in the scripture in Galatians, it talks about 430 years. I was like, this is crazy. Like, all of these things like converging into this one place is, like, again, deeply fascinating to me. I happen to be in the nerd class, uh obviously, but it's still like, wow, I can't believe you can even find, like, the fact that these things connect at all is just, it's unbelievable to me. So and I said that to say is, if Adam could live 84,000 years, then why are you talking about dying at 100? You know what I mean? Like, we got to get our lives right. We're not really, we're not looking at this the right way. And so, no, there's no way you can, and what is the benefit for the elites if you don't think you can live 84,000 years? Well, they think this place is too crowded. They understand the wisdom in the body. That's why when the queen died, they were all shocked. They thought that she had conquered death, honestly, because of all the weird, like, stuff that they're doing. And it's like, no, that's not how you conquer death. If you stitch in this timeline and, again, be of service, like, do what Jesus said, love what he had, two commandments: honor your father and your mother, and love your neighbor as yourself. Like, those was the only things. If you do those things and you determine, hey, I'm going to stay in my body as long as Adam, then you could do it. But you can't do it if you're not. It just changes the dynamic of all of these stories, because then you're like, okay, so these people that lived to 100, was it 100 or was it 100 cycles of Uranus? Like, now we've got a whole different, like, we're not even talking the same, like, language anymore, honestly, when you tie these things together. But you can only do this if you see, and they wouldn't have been able to see Uranus, so there's no way, like, you can't see it in the sky, so there's no, like, it's literally like out there, you know what I mean? And so, but it's also inside of you. Like, that's how that connection would be. So you can't do this though if you don't know the cycle of Uranus, if you don't know the mythology of Uranus being our father. Like, if you are engaging in religion in such a regimented way that you can't see the creator in everything, then you miss out on these opportunities to have these big dreams. Like, I'm thinking, oh, I need 5 million to reset my nervous system is a big dream. Now I'm like, dang, that's not even a big dream. A big dream is to live as long as Adam. You know what I mean? Like, now that's a totally different. $5 million ain't nothing if you live as long as Adam. If I had 5 million, if I had $5 million right now that I invested in whatever I invested in 84,000 years, you don't think I would have, like, enough money to do whatever I wanted. Like it would be impossible. Like a lot of people don't understand. Like when you look at these like wealthy people, a lot of them got like rich not because of what they did, but because of what their parents or their grandparents, great grandparents did. They're living on family wealth. Again, this whole concept of replacing the 13 families, they're living on family wealth. It wasn't their wealth. They didn't do the work. They just had to maintain it. And so when you start to see that, then you can start to see this great, big, grand picture play out where you can figure out where you want to be in that picture, provided you can think and dream big enough. Like I thought a big dream was $5 million. 80,000 years of living, that's a bigger dream than we could even ever concern ourselves with. Like, what are you going to do with that much time? Imagine how many cycles you would see and how many cycles you could like guide people through if you live that long. Of course, they believe that the planet will be overpopulated and all of this stuff. This is why they're talking about going to Mars and off planet and all this stuff, because they know somebody's going to figure out how to live a long time. And once one person figures out how to do it, everybody's going to know how to do it. It's going to be encoded into their DNA. As a matter of fact, the 13-day cycle that I was looking for, like trying to figure out, it is actually represented by your DNA. So imagine once I get in there and correct it, because nobody understands anything, and tie it into all this stuff, stitch it in. You talk about people talking about upgrading DNA. That's how you upgrade your DNA. You figure out these cycles, and your body will respond to, hey, this one right here, her DNA is coded for 80,000 years. We got to do something different. We got to change the story. We got to this and that. Everybody's going to be running around like chickens with their head cut off within your body, right? Especially if you've dealt with the parasites, you dealt with the worms, you dealt with this, you dealt with that. Your body is going to figure out how to preserve itself. So this is why, like, that was my one only issue with the saints, is that they gave up their bodies, and their bodies contain so much wisdom that they should have kept them. Now, what happened to the bodies of the saints? This is the part that I've talked about this like a few times, but I never had a reason to go into detail. But now I'm going to go into detail. What happened to their bodies? Why were they so determined to destroy these people's bodies? It wasn't just because of the Christianity thing. It's also because the bodies of the martyrs can be used for prophecy. Because imagine if your DNA is coded to the creator, which is what these martyrs and these saints did, their bodies and especially the ones that perform miracles, their bodies and their DNA and that's a requirement to be a saint. Like, not a martyr per se, but to be a saint, your body has to do some kind of a miracle. And so what they did with these people's bodies, which is one of the first things I figured out, like all the way back in 2022, is that they used these body parts to prophesy. And what would that look like? That would be like a Project Looking Glass, where they always talked about, they had the body parts of, they had somebody's head in a glass, and they would ask them questions, and they would get them answers, and so on and so forth. And that's literally what they did. They would take these body parts, particularly the heads. Now, remember, I said it was Diocletian who was cutting off these people's heads. That's what they did with them. Like the ones that weren't. This is why the Christians, the secret Christians who were trying to avoid being martyred, would come and claim the body parts of the people, the Christians who were murdered, because if not, these sorcerers, like again, like the one who created that golden calf that almost ended the world with Aaron and Moses' story, these wicked sorcerers would come and get the body parts of these saints and use it for witchcraft, use it for sorcery. And so if the Christians didn't come and get the bodies, the witches would, the sorcerers would. And so this is the kind of stuff that they were doing. I also mentioned that those teraphim, the little boxes that the professional victims unit wear on their head, if you look into that whole story, the point of those is that they are used to connect with the Holy Spirit. Now, how is a little electronic box going to connect you to the Holy Spirit? Well, if you look at what's in this box, which I've described before, but I'll just a little more detail this time, is it's bits of hair, teeth, skin, nails, and you're like, well, whose hair and teeth and skin and nails is this? Why do they, don't these, now everybody wearing one of these boxes on their head got hair, skin, nails, and teeth. So what is it about the hair, skin, nails, and teeth in the box that makes it something you can use to connect with the Holy Spirit that the person's natural hair, skin, nails, and teeth don't? See, this is where like these these are not like fake stories. Like these are like real stories of stuff that really like happen that like starts to make this stuff sound insane. You know what I mean? And so but this is what they've been doing. So that happened like Geronimo died in like 350 or something like that AD. This has been going on at least for that long. Longer than that if they were doing it at that time. So this is like keeping your body is important, and it's not just about having it buried somewhere or whatever, but you really want to like literally keep your body. You don't want to give up your body if you can.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yes,
You brought
please.
up something very interesting. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Adam did live 80,000 years. Why do I
Really?
why do I say that? Because okay, have you heard of Archangel Raziel?
Yeah, Raziel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Archangel Raziel, he holds like a few titles like Keeper of Secrets, Angel of Mysteries, Keeper of All Magic. And it's said that Raziel knelt beside God's throne and recorded everything that God was saying. And when Adam and Eve got turned away from the garden, Archangel Raziel went down to earth to give them, Adam and Eve, to give them the book that he wrote down regarding like the secrets of the universe from like
Right.
so in that book it contained everything, like the creative energy of thought to the spiritual laws of life and death. So if Adam, if Raziel gave that book to Adam, and within that book it contained the secrets of life and death and how to get back to heaven, like that book that Raziel wrote was given to Adam, and then it was given to Noah, and then it went into King Solomon's
Right.
possession. This is
Right.
what I've been researching a lot because I am deeply connected to Raziel. That's why I'm throwing it out there because it was like, oh wow, that's a very interesting thought, and now it's actually confirming what I'm picking up on. That's what I wanted to say.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. I have seen one of the like books that's like, oh, this was the book of Raziel and all of that. And I didn't have this understanding at the time when I was looking at it. So I couldn't really, it's like I wasn't on a high enough level energetically to really take in that kind of energy. But now I bet if I go back to it, it'll make a lot of sense. Like even this whole concept of the scales of numbers. Like I have a book, it's called the Mystic Test Book, and it talks about the scales of all these different numbers. And so I looked there first because I was like, oh, I remember I got this book that has the scales of the numbers. So I looked there, and even in that, the stuff is not in the right order. So it's like it's coded so that people can't misuse it. And you have to be able to, like, you have to have the foundation of certain things, like, or maybe a frequency, in order to unlock these actual codes. Like, if there's a book of like everything in the universe, imagine, you know, these quote unquote wicked people have it. Why is it they can't use it? Like they can't use this stuff. Like again, like they got it, but they can't use it. And instead of giving it to the people that could use it, they only want to give it to the ones that fit in their box. So like this is the example that I have for myself. Like there's like other people that do like kind of like what I do, not the same, but let's say like there's a girl on YouTube who specifically what has happened to her over the last 5 or 6 years very similar to what has happened to me. But like at this point in her story now, she has like a brand new house. She has like a brand new car. Like she's got all the things, and the money is coming in and the checks and all this stuff. And I'm, looking at her story, not in envy or anything like that, but wondering, okay, so if God is doing that for her, why isn't he doing it for me? I'm not asking for what she has. I'm not saying take it from her and give it to me. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm asking for the same things for my own life, for my own children, for my own family, my own household. Why is it that she's got the things and I don't have the things? And I come to the conclusion that it's because I refuse to put a toll booth on knowledge. If anybody wants to know something from me, I got videos on it and I'll point them to because 9 times out of 10, by the time they ask the question, it's already a video made. Let me send you to this video, take a look at this, and it'll probably add to your knowledge. Or if someone asks me a question, I'm going to go and do the research and figure it out, and I'm going to make a video on it, because if you have the question, that means someone else will have the question, and it's good to put that kind of knowledge out there. I do readings and stuff like that, but I don't advertise readings. Like, if people want a reading, they have to like come to me and ask, okay, how much is it? Like, what are you going to do? And I kind of talk with them to figure out what they need before I will do a reading. But not her. This girl, she's got products. You can't talk to her without paying a toll. Like, there is no like, oh, I've got this emergency problem, how do I solve this? And she's going to help you unless you have paid that fee. She don't work like that. And so on the opposite side of that, I know another YouTuber who refuses to take money. She'll talk to people if you have a problem, all this stuff, but she won't take any money at all, because the guy she works with basically told her she has to pledge a vow of poverty, essentially. Like, she can only get money from a certain group of people and she can't get money from another group of people. So you have 3 quote unquote black looking women. 2 of them look like they're doing great, and you got me who look like I'm falling flat on my face. But it's obvious we're not working with the same God, even though you would say, oh, all black people work with the same God. That's not true. It's just not true. No, a lot of people are not working with the same God, like in general. And so we have to also like keep that in mind. Like, you can't compare yourself to someone who's not working with the same God. So now, who do I compare myself with? Well, I have a friend. We do a lot of research together. When something good happens to me, something good happens to her. We're working with the same God, so the things are unfolding in a similar manner. So that's how you have to like look to see if something is wrong with you. You can't look at everybody. You have to find someone who's working with the same God's system, whatever, as you. You guys could be in the same family. Nobody in my family is, maybe my dad, let me not say that, almost no one in my family is working with this God that I'm working with. Like, they're working with different ones, and I can pretty much tell now which ones, but they're not working with who I'm working with. Like, this obvious. And so I can't compare myself to anybody even within my family. I had to go halfway across the country and find this, random stranger to be, oh, we're actually working with the same God. This is fascinating. What about this? What about that? And this is how you build your own like personal round table, where you have a group of people who are all kind of working with the same like God, that you can figure out how to basically I've got to get into the whole mythology of King Arthur, because I can't even remember the general stories now. I just know that they had a round table and they was doing the stuff. I was researching the Morrigan, which is like the female characters, but now I got to start really looking into the like how this round table worked, how they put it together, and all that stuff, because we're gonna have to do that. And in the nature of Saint Geronimo, it would be like different safe houses in different areas. We meet in different places and we rotate it around, and a lot of things that are covert things, like overt things, like are done openly, but they're done in the name of something else. But it's not because we want to be like secret, but because we want the actual nature of what we're doing to last. So just like the 12 days of Christmas song is still sung to this day, everybody knows about it. Nobody is thinking that the 12 days of Christmas have to do with the 12 days of creation. And it doesn't matter, because the song, because it's encoded with this very high level mystic information, no matter what, you're going to like it's encoded into you. So whenever your DNA is activated, you will see that. So another example of this has to do with John Brown, who I was talking about with the raid at Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. I mean, it's Harper's Ferry in Maryland, but it's also in West Virginia too. So there's a song, it's called John Brown's Bones, because what John Brown did when he took over the armory in Harper's Ferry is that he was literally trying to free black people. Like that was the goal. Like he wanted black people to be free. Now this is a white man, so the song John Brown's Bones was to celebrate, what he had done for the abolitionist movement. Okay. And so on May Day, I think it was 19, I can't remember when the first May Day was, but what happened was there was um, a racetrack that had a bunch of soldiers black soldiers who had passed away, basically just dumped in the middle of the racetrack. And so it was 3,000 children, like 1,000 or 2,000 women carrying flowers, and then a bunch of people. They went and they reburied all of the bodies, and they walked around the racetrack and they sang this song, John Brown's Bones. And so it was such a impactful event that the American government started lying about the origins of May Day, and basically they said that it had come from all these other places, because May Day is the predecessor to our current Memorial Day. And so they said, oh, it was these other women in South Carolina. Oh, it was somebody in New York, and that's where it really came from. But it really came from these black people getting these soldiers who had died in the war and reinterning them somewhere that was suitable, instead of leaving them in the middle of that racetrack. Now, why'd I bring that up? Because when you think about bodies being left in the middle of the racetrack, it's very similar to what I was talking about, what that was done to the martyrs, where they were put in the middle of the Colosseum, animals were sent out, all kinds of stuff. All this torture was done for the entertainment of the king. And so you can only imagine how these people died, because they never talk about how these people actually die. I read several accounts on this. I have not been able to figure out how these people died. And so when you see stories like that like kind of pop up, then you're like, okay, this is like, again, something that was done. And so invoking like John Brown, like, in this way, is it just indicates like the interconnectedness of like all of this stuff. So even though we call it, Memorial Day now, they called it May Day. That holiday has been celebrated for a long time. There's no way that they just knew to do this whole ceremony, because in the Orthodox Church, which I don't think they do in the Catholic Church, that is how we honor Jesus on Easter. On Easter, we have or we call it Pascha, but we have our service at 11:30 at night, and just before midnight, we come out of the church and we walk around the church in a circle with our candles lit, because the church, when you go in, it is dark. So you come out of the church, you walk around the church in a circle. Okay. At 12 o'clock, the lights come on, signifying that Jesus has risen from the dead or from the grave. And we start singing. Specifically, we sing Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing light. And so that Christ is risen from the dead, we actually sing that particular like chant for like 16 weeks after Easter. It's a very, very long like celebration season. And so participating in that service in the Orthodox Church, reading about this and what they did at this racetrack, I'm like, these are the same thing. That was a memorial service. That's how we memorialize our people. So how would, if Orthodoxy, really didn't get to the East Coast at this time, why do you have these people conducting an Orthodox funeral? Like, these are the kind of questions that I keep asking, and I haven't really gotten good answers. I mean, I have the answers, but they're not they haven't been corroborated by facts. But you can only have so many of these coincidences before you're like, okay, some of this stuff it's got to be connected. So I do encourage people to look for the little things that seem little, like they seem insignificant, and look for the mystic nature of those things. Like again, Saint Geronimo's blood liquefying on his feast day. Like, that's a little thing, but in Italy, where they celebrate in Naples, another crazy thing is my sister and my oldest daughter were in Naples, because my sister was in the Navy, so she was stationed in Naples. She could have gone to see this. I have to ask her when I see her tomorrow. But my daughter has been to Naples, so she's been in proximity of this. So this is, again, it's not a thing that's way out there for me. It's a thing that's very close to me, because I had people in the vicinity and didn't even know, what kind of protection that they was under when they was there. So this is all, this little stuff. But so when you learn to find the magic in life for these little things, you will see the magic in life for the big things. And I think that's what, like, the whole concept of the church and mysticism is. Like, they want you, not all churches obviously, but in general, the church doesn't want you to really be able to find the mystic nature in life by yourself, because if they feel like it's going to put them out of business. But me being the way that I am, I have not decided that I don't need the church, because I go to church not for my it's just, again, it's a big shift in how you think about it. Like, I don't go to church for myself. I go to church to lend my energy to what they're trying to do. I see that they're trying to do a good work, and I think in my mind, my energy being a part of that is going to help it to be successful. I've seen it before when my energy is a part of something. I've seen when I take my energy away from something, what happens. And so that's how I view it. So it doesn't stop me from going to church. Now, can I go to church every single Sunday? No. Sometimes the energy is very thick, especially like new moons and full moons, and I try not to impose my energy on everyone else. But in a overall, yeah, I'll go. I think it's good. I think church is good for people. I'm glad to see a lot of people going back to church. I know that it's going to be, it might not work out for everyone the way that they think it is, but I think that in general, what the church was designed to do is great. It might not be working out as designed right now, but if everybody, because a lot of people had left the church, if everybody removes their energy, things can't be changed. But if you take this mysticism, this wonder, and also like this very simple way of explaining a lot of this stuff, and bring it back into the church, then you will see the numbers increase. Like my church, there's no space. Like, they're about to start building a bigger church. I mean, and when I started going there in 2022, actually, I started going to that church. It was kind of packed, but now it's like bursting at the seams. Every week, a new person is coming in. Babies are being born every single month. Like, this is a huge expanding church. And so that's very good. Like, we want to see that, but it's going to be up to these pastors to make to invoke the true nature of Christianity, and make the people help the people to gain what they need. And so, but that can only be done if people are in there lending their energy to it to make things successful. And I'm guessing you still can't talk.
Can you hear me?
No. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking. I think an hour and a half is long enough. I'm definitely going to look into Archangel Raziel. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight, and we'll definitely see you on Tuesday, most likely around the same time, and we'll continue our discussions. So
Thank you.
good night, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.